Hello, everyone, and welcome to the official Butt Fumble Sports bracket breakdown for March Madness. We're going to go through every region, every game. We're not only going to give you the picks, we're going to give you the gambling bets that we like as well. So settle in. We're going to go through every game of the NCAA tournament, everything you need to build the perfect bracket, as well as the cash tickets. But before we get into it, make sure you hit the link in our bio, buttfumblesports.com. There, sign up for the free newsletter. Everything you need is going to be coming out in a free newsletter tomorrow morning. Appreciate all of you joining us. Butt Fumble Sports is going to be providing all the notes, gambling trends, and picks you need for the NCAA tournament. We're going to go through every single region, every single game, and every single pick of the tournament over the next hour plus. Appreciate you joining us. Make sure you hit the link in our bio to buttfumblesports.com. Let's start by going into the round of 64, and we're going to start in the South region. First matchup in the South region is between the number one overall seed, Alabama, and then a play-in game of two 16 seeds. We're going to skip past that. We're going to go and put Alabama right in. Don't need to spend too much time on that game. But the matchup that will lead into that, or the matchup that ultimately will play Alabama, is Maryland at 8 versus West Virginia number 9. Let's break that game down. Maryland right now is a 2.5-point underdog with West Virginia the favorite. Maryland was 5th in the Big Ten, West Virginia 8th in the Big 12. Interesting to see these two conferences square off. We're going to talk a lot about who's the best conference in college basketball. The NCAA tournament so often demonstrates or illustrates who really is the best conference. This is a showdown of two conferences that at least have a claim to it. West Virginia was 7-11 in their conference, but a lot of people believe the Big 12 was the best in the country. When it comes to the strengths of these two teams, West Virginia, good offensive team. Maryland, good defensive team. Maryland, 26th when it comes to points allowed, allowing just 63 points per game. So expect them to kind of try and contain the West Virginia offense. In years past, we've talked about the Mountaineers as a press defense. Not quite the case. They get up and down the floor now offensively, and they really score the basketball. The strength of the offense, the strength of West Virginia, rather, is their offense. They're ranked 71st in offensive rating. A couple of notes for you. Maryland has 4 scorers that average double digits, but their leading scorer, Jameer Young, is someone to look for. He averages 16 points per game. On West Virginia's side, Eric Stevenson, 15.5 points per game. They also have 4 different scorers in double digits. So this is a pretty even matchup. I really like this game in terms of quality of entertainment. From a betting standpoint, it's pretty tricky. The trends suggest that West Virginia is a slight better play, with the under also being the recommendation. But this is a tricky one for me. I do lean towards picking West Virginia in my bracket to advance. I like West Virginia advancing to the round of 32 and winning in this game. And for that reason, I'm going to take them on the spread as well at -2.5. Only because I feel like this game isn't going to finish in a 3-point or a buzzer beater. I think the final team will get some extra free throws to open it up to about 5 points at the end. So I like West Virginia on the money line. I like West Virginia to cover -2.5, and I like the under. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Butt Fumble Sports, all the content you need, whether it's college basketball or the world of sports. But we're going to be putting out so much content around college basketball and every pick you need. So make sure you go to our platforms and subscribe on YouTube, our Butt Fumble Sports channel, and of course here on TikTok. Hit that follow button. That way you know every time we go live and you get all of our content. We put out some of the bets we liked earlier today. We'll be reviewing those throughout the show. The next game we're going to get into in the South region is number 5 San Diego State against number 12 Charleston. We talked about this game when the bracket first came out. One of my favorite games to look at. This game tips off at 3:10 on Thursday on CBS. San Diego State was first in the Mountain West Conference. College of Charleston was first in the CAA. College of Charleston is 31-3, so they haven't had a strong strength of schedule, 276th in strength of schedule. but they won most of their games throughout the year, and they're one of the rare teams in which you see them both well positioned in offensive rating and defensive rating. Charleston is 16th in offensive rating in the country, 27th in defensive rating, so they play well on both sides of the floor. They just haven't played good opponents. Does that give me any concern? It doesn't. San Diego State, for a couple reasons, I don't like them as much. Offensively, they're only averaging 72 points per game. They're a defensive-minded team, but I don't think they can score enough points to keep up with College of Charleston. So this is going to be my first upset of the tournament. I like number 12, Charleston, upsetting number 5, San Diego State, and advancing to the round of 32. Right now, by the way, those who are looking to place a bet on that, San Diego State is a 5.5-point favorite. I like the College of Charleston to cover no matter what. So even if you don't like my pick and would rather go with San Diego State, you certainly should consider the cover play. Additionally, I mentioned, think of the under given the defense of San Diego State. Make sure you join our bracket challenge. There's a newsletter with a link and password going out tonight. Be sure to sign up. The link is in our bio. Hit that link in our bio. Takes you to our website, buttfumblesports.com. Sign up for that free newsletter and join our bracket challenge. The password for the bracket challenge is in that newsletter, so you got to sign up for the newsletter to join. You can compete against us. You can show us your skills. Make sure you hit that link in our bio and sign up for that free newsletter and join the bracket challenge. The next game we're going to break down, the winner would go on to play Charleston in the round of 32, is number 4 Virginia versus number 13 Furman. I put out a video earlier today about this game. Another one that I really like. Virginia going into this game lost in the ACC tournament against Duke. Some of their shine has come off. They're a 5.5-point favorite. Total for this one set at 132.5. UVA won the ACC regular season, went 15-5 in the ACC, while Furman was first in the Southern standings. They went 15-3 in the Southern Conference. Furman scores a lot of points, 8th in the country in total points scored, 82.1 points per game. UVA, they focus on their defense. They allow just 60 points per game on average. But I like Furman in this game to cover. I'm not quite sure if Furman can ultimately pull off the upset. I actually think UVA will probably win in advance, so I like UVA on the money line. But Furman as a cover play is definitely a matchup I like. I also would buy the 1.5. Right now, Furman at 5.5 points. I'd like a little bit more room to work on that. So I would buy the 1.5 and take Furman +7. I would also consider the under, only because I do think Virginia's defense and the way they play offense, bleeding clock, will play into that underplay. But I like Furman to cover given how they can score. So one more time to fresh you up on our first 4 picks in the top half of the Southern region. I have Alabama advancing. I have them playing West Virginia after West Virginia beats Maryland. I have Charleston pulling off one of the first big upsets of the tournament, a 12 seed beating number 5 San Diego State. And then number 4, I have them just squeaking past Furman in a win but non-cover play. I like Virginia on the money line, but Furman to cover. If you want to get all of our picks, make sure you hit that link in our bio. Takes you to buttfumblesports.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. In that newsletter, you'll get all of our information as well as access to all of our content. We're going to be putting out all of our picks from all regions, so make sure you go to our channels, Buttfumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. Subscribe on all of those channels. That way you know every time we're live. Make sure you're following us. Hit that follow button. That way you get access to all of our content. We're going to shift now down to the lower part of the Southern region bracket. Number 6, Creighton, going up against NC State. NC State was one of the last teams to make it into the tournament. They were on that bubble. They get in at the expense of Rutgers and a few others. Creighton, 21-12 this year. They finished 3rd in the Big East, one of the better conferences in the country, 14-6 in the Big East. Meanwhile, NC State went 12-8 in an ACC that wasn't spectacular. NC State finished 6th overall. These are two teams that really rely on their offense. Creighton is 59th in the country in scoring. NC State is 35th. Both teams average around 76, 78 points per game. So expect these two teams to be right around that 150 range in terms of total points scored. The total for this game is set at 148.5 right now, with Creighton the 5-point favorite. Creighton has 5 players with that average double-digit points. Outside of those 5, though, that highest scorer, who's number 6, he's only averaging 3.8 points per game. So they really rely heavily on their top 5 scorers. Meanwhile, NC State, 4 players averaging double digits. A couple players to watch. Terquavian Smith averages 17.5 points per game, and Jarkel Joyner, 17.1 points per game. So NC State kind of relies on their top best players to score, really lead them. Meanwhile, Creighton is more balanced across their top 5 scorers. In this one, I like Creighton on the money line. I like Creighton to advance to the round of 32. I do like the over in this game. As I mentioned, these are two teams that are strong on offense. Creighton 62nd in offensive rating, NC State 34th. I like Creighton to win, and I like the over in a high-scoring competitive game. The team that will play Creighton comes out of a number 3 Baylor, number 14 UC Santa Barbara matchup. Baylor limped a little bit towards the end of the year, especially in that Big 12 tournament. I expected a little bit more out of them. They lost earlier than I expected. They're a heavy favorite in this one, though. Baylor 11.5-point favorites. The total set at 142.5 points. This game's on Friday on TNT at 1:30. Baylor finished 3rd in the Big 12, 11-7 conference record. Meanwhile, UC Santa Barbara won the Big West regular season, going 15-5. Baylor has 4 players averaging double digits, and their 2 big scorers, Keontae George, Adam Flagler, 2 guys who are going to bring a lot of offense. Baylor is a really good offensive team, maybe not as good at a defense as they've been in years past, but a very good offensive team. 17th in the country in offensive rating, 54th when it comes to points scored per game, averaging 77.2 points per game. I like the over in this one. I like Baylor on the money line, and I like the over in this one. I expect both teams to score a good amount of points. The Gauchos aren't as good offensively as the Baylor Bears, but they're good enough offensively to at least make it a bit competitive, especially when it comes to that overplay. So I like over 142.5 points, and I like Baylor not sweating an upset, Baylor advancing to the next round to play Creighton in the round of 32. Let's finish up the South region. We have 2 games remaining in the South region. The first one is a 7-10 matchup between Missouri and Utah State. Missouri is 24-9, and they were 4th in the SEC, going 11-7 in the conference, while Utah State, 2nd in the Mountain West, going 13-5. Utah State was another one of those teams that might have been on the bubble, found their way in, but Utah State actually a favorite in this one, a 1.5 favorite. The total for this game set at a whopping 154.5 points, so you wouldn't be surprised. Both these teams really good offensively. Missouri averages just under 80 points per game, 23rd in the country in points per game for Missouri. Meanwhile, Utah State averages 78.6 points per game, good for 33rd in the country. Expect a lot of points. Missouri, they have Kobe Brown, who averages 15.8 points per game. He's their leading scorer. But they also have a really good three-point shooter. Demoy Hodge averages 7.2 three-point attempts per game and is shooting 40.1% from 3. I like Missouri's offense a lot. This is a tough game for me to pick. Last night, when I went through the first crack at this, I really liked Missouri in the first blush. But looking at Utah State's numbers, there's a lot of reasons to like Utah State in the 7-10 upset. So I've changed my mind. Despite liking Missouri a lot and really liking the team out of the SEC, what's kind of pulling at me is the SEC has been so good this year that I have a bit more confidence in their teams. But that said, I'm going to go against the original instinct, and I'm going to go with Utah State to advance, pulling off the 10-7 upset over Missouri. I'll have Utah State with the win and with the cover. Right now, again, Utah State is a 1.5-point favorite. I like them covering that. I don't think it's going to be a buzzer beater situation. I think they'll win by 2 points. The last game of the Southern region that we're going to go through is the number 2 seed Arizona Wildcats going up against Princeton. Arizona was so impressive this year in the Pac-12. They had a 28-6 overall record. They're the heavy favorites in this one, a 13.5-point favorite. The total set at 153.5 points. Princeton was first in the Ivy League. They went 10-4 in their conference. Princeton can score the basketball, 76 points per game, but they can't score like Arizona does. Arizona, 82.7 points per game, 5th best in the country. So while Princeton's going to be able to contend for a time, at least keeping it within range, I fear that, this game's going to turn into a blowout quick. The question is, can you get a backdoor cover from Princeton? I'm not going to touch it. I like Arizona on the money line. I like Arizona obviously advancing to the next round. The only play I really like in this game is the over. Given both these teams can score the basketball like they do, I really like the over in this game. For all of our picks and all of our content, make sure you're following us. Hit that follow button. You never want to miss an opportunity to hear our picks, our analysis, gambling trends, and the like. So make sure you hit that follow button and know every time we go live and every time we put out a video with gambling trends across college basketball and across sports. And as well, hit the link in our bio. It takes you right to our website, buttfumblesports.com. We will be sending out a free newsletter tonight, should get into your inbox tomorrow morning with all of our picks, analysis, and game notes just a click away. Sign up for that free newsletter and also join our bracket challenge. We're doing it through ESPN. The link and the password is in that newsletter. So sign up for the free newsletter. It's going to go out tonight, be in your inbox tomorrow morning with everything you need to sign up for the bracket challenge, show off your skills, compete against us, and let's see who comes out ahead, Butt Fumble Sports or the buddies out there. So make sure you hit the link in our bio and sign up for that free newsletter with all of that information and the opportunity to play us in that bracket challenge. We just broke down the southern region of the bracket, going through every game of round 64. We're going to shift over to the Midwest region and break down the round of 64 for the Midwest region next. To kick off the Midwest region, we're going to quickly go through Houston versus Northern Kentucky. Houston, by all metrics, actually is the best team to bet in the NCAA tournament. On the sports books that have national championship winner odds, Houston is the number 1 team. They're the favorite at plus 500, coming in just ahead of Alabama and Kansas. And according to KenPom, Houston is the best team to bet on to be the overall national champion. They have the metrics when it comes to offensive quality of play and defensive quality of play that actually suggest they are the best team to bet on to win the national championship. The only question for me is Marcus Sasser, their star player, their star guard. He was injured. His health status is questionable for this upcoming game. So the question is he going to be healthy? He averages 17.1 points per game. If he's not available, I don't think that changes Houston's opportunity to move on to the round of 32. But I certainly think it impacts what they can accomplish going into the round of 32 and the Sweet 16. That said, Houston, one of the best defensive teams in the country, allowing only 56.5 points per game. Offensive rating of 6th in the country. Defensive rating, they're 1st. Hard for Northern Kentucky to compete with the Houston Cougars. I like Houston to advance in a non-sweat game. I will say this, though. I like Northern Kentucky to cover. The spread right now is 19.5 points. I'll take Northern Kentucky to cover. I'm kind of banking on Sasser not playing in this game. That gives me a slight opportunity to bet on Northern Kentucky and feel like I get a slight advantage on what the odds should be. So I like Houston on the money line. I like Northern Kentucky to cover the plus 19.5 spread. And I like the under with Houston's defense really showing out. Make sure you're joining our bracket challenge. Hit that link in our bio. Sign up for our free newsletter, buttfumblesports.com. Challenge us with our picks, with your own. Let's see which bracket comes out ahead. The team that will be facing Houston in the round of 32 is Iowa or Auburn. Depends on who's going to win this matchup. By the way, for all of those who are reaching out in the chat, don't worry, we're going to get to your comments. I'm just going through the Midwest region now. We will post all of our picks for those who are asking. Make sure you go to our website, hit the link in our bio. That newsletter that's going to be in your inbox tomorrow morning is going to have a ton of information that you want. So make sure you sign up for that free newsletter. The link is in our bio. We will post all of our picks. We'll also be giving out notes throughout the week in both videos and in blogs. So you're going to want to hit the follow button. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. That way you know when all of our content drops. Don't miss it. You're going to want to get it. That way you can cash in on all of the March Madness action. Let's get back to the Midwest bracket. Number 8 Iowa against number 9 Auburn. Auburn was a hot team early in the year. They really faded as the season went on. Meanwhile, Iowa, they play in a really competitive Big Ten, and at times they had some nice wins. Iowa is a 1.5 point favorite. Auburn opened as the favorite. Money came down on Iowa, swung it in their direction. I feel that Iowa is the better play. Iowa minus 1.5 is the play I like. Total set at 152. I'm going to avoid any questions about this. I like Iowa on the cover. I like the over. I like the scoring opportunities of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Chris Murray is one of my favorite players in college basketball. His brother is already in the NBA with the Sacramento Kings. Chris Murray will surely join him in the NBA in a few months. He's averaging 20.4 points per game. Iowa can shoot the ball from 3. Auburn's good, not as good as they were, like I said earlier in the year. Joni Broom averaging 14 points per game, 8.4 rebounds. He's the star for them, but I think Auburn's going to fall short. I like Iowa on the money line. I like Iowa to cover, and I like the over in that game as Iowa advances to the round of 32 to play Houston. In the next game in the Midwest region, it's number 5 Miami going up against number 12 Drake. And when this game first came out, it immediately had my attention. I'm a big fan of Drake this year. Drake is one of the few teams that hits one of the sweet spots. They're near the top 50 in both offensive rating and defensive rating. You can't say the same about Miami. Miami is a really good offensive team. They average 79 points per game, 25th most in the country. But Drake, they only allow 63.9 points per game, 32nd in the country. Drake's a good defensive team, but they also do enough on offense to be able to stay competitive in games. I like Drake to pull off the upset. I had a 12-5 upset in the South region. I have a 12-5 upset here in the Midwest region. I have Drake pulling off the upset against Miami. I like them on the cover play, obviously plus 2.5. Also them on the money line. I will take the under. Right now the total is set at 147.5 points. Given that I like Drake to pull off the upset, I'll also take Drake on the under, or on the cover, but rather on the under, figuring defense is going to be the dominant play. Yeah, Colin, I'm just like you. I like Miami a lot. They have a lot of talent, but I think the ACC wasn't as talented this year, and that's why I'm leaning away from Miami and other ACC teams. I really like Drake. There are a number of teams right now who are in that Cinderella position that I have my eye on, FAU being one of them, Drake being one of them, Charleston being one of them. So Drake in this situation gets to pull off the upset. I have Drake advancing to the round of 32. They play the winner of number 4 Indiana against number 13 Kent State. Indiana didn't go as far as the Big Ten tournament as I would have hoped. They lost to Penn State in the semifinals. IU has 2 big-time stars that will be NBA bound once this season concludes. Trace Jackson Davis averaging 20.8 points per game, 10.9 rebounds, and Jalen Hood-Schifino, a 6'6 point guard who averages 13.5 points per game. Indiana is really good at blocking shots, but they're not as good at scoring as you would like. Only those 2 players average double figures. Meanwhile, Kent State, 3 players who average double figures. And maybe more importantly, they create a lot of havoc. They're 17th in the country in steals per game, 8.9. This is a game I put out a video earlier about. Keep your eye on this one. I like Indiana to advance. I like Indiana on the money line, but I have Kent State covering rather. 4.5 points is the spread right now. I have Kent State covering that 4.5 point spread. If you want to buy the 1.5 for some extra security, I wouldn't blame you to get Kent State at +6. But I like IU on the money line, Kent State to cover. I think it's a close game. I will take the over. There are a couple trends that lean towards the over. The Golden Flashes are 4-1 on the over in their last 5 games. Hoosiers 5-1 on the over in their last 6 games. So one more time, I like Indiana to advance to the next round, but I like Kent State to cover, and I like the over in that game. That would set up a matchup between number 12 Drake and number 4 Indiana in the round of 32. We're breaking down every game of the NCAA tournament. Right now we're going through the Midwest region. Make sure you follow us for every pick of the NCAA tournament and all of our bets as well. Hit that follow button. That way you know every time we go live. We will be on TikTok Live and YouTube throughout the week, giving out gambling notes, giving out advice, and of course, engaging with you to help you build the perfect bracket. If you want to challenge us in a bracket challenge, go to our website, buttfumblesports.com. The link is in our bio. It takes you right there. Sign up for a free newsletter, gives you the information you need to join our bracket challenge. You can take us on, and you can prove us either right or wrong. The next game we're going to get into actually includes one of the play-in games. So before we get into Iowa and whoever they're going to play, we'll briefly talk about the play-in game between number 11 Pittsburgh and number 11 Mississippi State. That game is on Tuesday night on True TV. Pittsburgh it was 3rd in the ACC, Mississippi State 9th in the SEC. Again, a battle of 2 conferences I feel very differently about. Wasn't high on the ACC this year. Feel very differently about the SEC. Really like the strength of competition throughout at least the top half of the SEC. Pittsburgh, not a good defensive team. They're better offensively. But Mississippi State, 10th best defense in the country. 61 points allowed per game. Really strong in terms of defensive rating. They were 12th. So while Pittsburgh brings a good offense, Mississippi State's defense, I think, will ultimately win out. I like Mississippi State to cover. Mississippi State -1.5. So Mississippi State advances from the first 4 play-in game into that game against Iowa State. But for that Pittsburgh Mississippi State game, I do like the under as that total play. So talking about Iowa State now going up against Mississippi State. Iowa State, good defense. Mississippi State, good defense. Expect the under to be the popular play. But I think that first 4 play-in game is going to hurt Mississippi State's chances of advancing to the next round. I think they're going to be tired. I think they'll be a little bit sloppy offensively. I like Iowa State, number 6, Iowa State, advancing to the round of 32 in the Midwest region. They will play the winner of number 3, Xavier, against number 14, Kennesaw State. Xavier was 25-9 in the regular season and finished 2nd in the Big East, 15-5 conference record. Meanwhile, Kennesaw State was 1st in the A-Sun Conference, going 15-3 against their conference opponents. Strength of Xavier is their offense. They average 81.4 points per game, 12th most in the country. Meanwhile, Kennesaw State, they really don't have a particular strength. I guess you would say it would be their defense. They're 79th in defensive rating. They're 94th in points per game scored. Kennesaw State really isn't a strength in one way or another. The one thing that I would lean towards is I like the over. I think there are going to be points in this game, but I like Xavier advancing. I know someone in here mentioned in the chat, Brian, you like Kennesaw State as a sleeper. I don't. I think Xavier's a really strong team. I like them in this first round. I like Xavier to advance to the round of 32. The next game we're going to break down is between Texas A&M, the number 7 seed that might have been hosed by the selection committee when the bracket came out. They get an unfavorable matchup against Penn State. Number 10 Penn State played in the Big Ten tournament championship game against Purdue. They ultimately lost after a nail-biting finish as Penn State was able to come back and make it a close game. but Penn State ultimately gets the number 10 seed overall. Penn State is a good three-point shooting team, so when it comes to how Texas A&M is going to have to defend against them, expect that defense around the three-point range is going to be significant. For Penn State, Jalen Pickett is their big offensive scorer. He averages 17.9 points per game. Texas A&M only has 2 scorers who average double digits. For a number of reasons, this is a tough game to pick. I'm going to slightly lean, just for now, towards Penn State. I like Penn State in this situation right now. Texas A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to go with Penn State on a cover play. I don't feel great about it either way. This is one of the few games in the entire bracket that I really don't have a strong sense of. Penn State does need a big man, Brian. I totally agree with you. They have good three-point shooting, but they don't have enough strength inside. Something tells me Texas A&M, I'm fickle on this one. I'm going with Penn State, but I fear it's recency bias. I do like their ability to shoot the three. The real reason I'm going with them is I think Penn State's going to have the opportunity to shoot the three against Texas A&M, and I think that's what's going to make the difference. But I don't feel great about it. I am going with the 10-7 upset here, but don't feel great about it. John, if you want to challenge us, hit the link in our bio, sign up for our free newsletter. We're going to have a bracket challenge. There are opportunities to win different prizes, so make sure you sign up for that free newsletter and join our bracket challenge on buttfumblesports.com. The winner of the Texas-Colgate matchup will play Penn State. I'll be really brief on this one. I love Texas. Texas is one of my favorite teams right now in the country. They were fantastic, 26-8 through the regular season, finished second in the Big 12. Colgate's a good offense. Colgate averages 78 points per game. That's better than Texas does. So I do like Colgate to cover the 13.5 points, but I like Texas on the money line, Texas advancing, Colgate to cover, and I like the under in this game only based on the trends. The under is 5-0 in the Longhorns' last 5 games overall, and the under is 4-0 in the Raiders' last 4 games versus a team with a plus 600 winning percentage. Appreciate all of you guys joining us. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. Butt Fumble Sports, the place to get all of your sports information. We put out game notes, gambling trends, everything you need to make smart bets and make smart picks for your bracket. Hit that follow button. That way you know every time we drop content. We'll be going through every game of the entire tournament. You don't want to miss it. If you missed some of our picks already, or if you have to go and you can't catch some of our others, make sure you're following and make sure you're subscribing. That way you know every time we drop content. And join our bracket challenge. The newsletter with the link and the password is going out tonight. It will be in your inbox tomorrow morning. Be sure to sign up. The link is in the bio. Hit that link and sign up. Answering a few quick questions before we get to the next region in our bracket. Got Texas, Bama, Duke, and UCLA. What are my thoughts? I don't like Duke and UCLA, but I certainly like Texas and Alabama. I think Texas and Alabama will get pretty far into the tournament. You'll have to see how far and keep watching our show. Appreciate all of you joining us. Once again, we're going through the entire NCAA bracket. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see us build the bracket on the screen. If you want to engage with us, make sure you follow us. Hit us up in our DMs. We're more than happy to talk picks. So if you want us to help build your bracket, make sure you contact us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Butt Fumble Sports, and of course on Twitter @SportsFumble. Tim, you're going to have to stick around. I'm going to give out all of my picks for all the regions. So those are the next 2 regions we're going to go through. The next region we're going to break down for the round of 64 is the West region. We'll start with Kansas. We'll be really quick about it. I like Kansas to advance against Howard. Not going to make a lot of time with it. I know there are some people who are thinking they're going to be a 116 upset this year. I don't think so. I have Kansas advancing. Kansas plays the winner, though, of Arkansas versus Illinois. This is a really tough game for me to pick. I like both of these teams a lot, like both of their head coaches, Eric Musselman of Arkansas, Brad Underwood of Illinois. Arkansas is a 2.5-point favorite right now. When it comes to these teams, they're kind of middle of the pack statistically. There isn't something they do either really well. If you were to say there was something they do well, it's defense. So I certainly could see this being a lower scoring game, The line right now, the total rather, is set at 143.5 points. I want to see how that line movement plays out before I put down a total bet. But when it comes to building our bracket and making a pick, I'm going to go with Arkansas. I like Illinois a lot, but I think Arkansas is the slightly better team. I think this is a very close game, so I'm not going to bet the spread. Given that the spread right now is only 2.5 points, I feel like this could be a buzzer-beating situation, a last-shot situation. So I will take Arkansas to advance to the round of 32, just barely over Illinois. That'll be the pick. The next game in the West region that we're going to break down is St. Mary's going up against VCU. St. Mary's has some impressive metrics. If you're looking for a dark horse team that actually could win the tournament overall, St. Mary's falls into what is the criteria that has defined the last 19 of 20 winners of the NCAA tournament, according to KenPom rankings. But St. Mary's is just a 4.5 point favorite against VCU, who's a very good defensive team. VCU allows just the 24th fewest points per game, 7th in defensive rating. St. Mary's is a great defensive team as well. They only allow 60 points per game. That's good for 5th in the country. So expect a very low scoring game. But that said, I actually like the over because the total is set so low right now. The over is actually a good play. The total right now is set at 122.5 points. That's one of those situations where Vegas is setting a line that's so low, knowing these are two really good defensive teams, that actually the over is the better play because the under is, the under would be a 59-59 kind of game. I don't see that happening. I see there being a 65-64 finish. So I like the over in this game. I do like St. Mary's on the money line. I have been considering VCU on a cover. I haven't touched it yet. I'm curious to know if this spread's going to get some movement. Right now, St. Mary's, like I mentioned, is a 4.5 point favorite. If that gets pushed up to 5.5 points, I game UConn 24-8, Iona 27-7. The spread for this game right now is 9.5 points. That seems way too big for me. I like Iona to cover the spread. I'll just jump right to the chase. Iona's a good team, especially when it comes to both offense and defense. They're 69th in points per game. They're 42nd in defense in points allowed per game. When it comes to offense and defensive rating, they're in the top 50 in both categories. UConn can tout the same thing. This is going to be a really competitive matchup. UConn has 3 players that average double figures. You want to make sure that you keep an eye on their leading scorer, who averages 17.3 points per game. UConn averages 17.3 assists per game. They're really good at distributing the basketball. That's a quality that is really coveted in the NCAA tournament, is your ability to hold on to the ball, not have turnovers, but be able to distribute, challenge against different defenses that you face. I think UConn is a really good team. I just think Iona is a tough first opponent for them in the round of 64. I like UConn on the money line, advancing to the round of 32, but I like Iona to cover the 9-point spread, and I like the under in this game. The trend suggests the under is the good play, so I'll go with the under in that, but I like UConn advancing, beating Iona in a very close game to set up what should be a very competitive 4-5 game between UConn and St. Mary's in the West region. We now shift down to the bottom half of the West bracket. Number 6 TCU will play the winner of Arizona State and Nevada. We will quickly talk about that play-in game. I like Arizona State to win that one. Arizona State has been the better team throughout the regular season. They were 11-9 in a competitive Pac-12 conference. I like them on the defensive side of the ball. They're allowing just 67.7 points per game. So I like Arizona State to win that game and to cover. Arizona State right now is a 2.5 point favorite. I have Arizona State covering. I like the under in that play-in game. But Arizona State advancing to then play TCU. TCU is a team that people should have their eye on, making a potential run to the Sweet 16. So I like TCU beating Arizona State. We won't break down that game, given that there's still the play-in game to be determined. The winner of Gonzaga Grand Canyon will play TCU, according to me. I like Gonzaga. Again, I'm going to be quick about this one. Gonzaga, the best offense in the country, averaging the most points of any team in the country. Gonzaga is just an established team. They've been here before. This is a 15.5-point spread. For that reason, I do like Grand Canyon University to cover, but I like Gonzaga on the money line. This is easy for me. Drew Timme, their leader, their superstar, he's averaging 20.9 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 3.2 assists. He does everything for them. There's no way he's going to allow them to lose in an opening round matchup to Grand Canyon University. I like Gonzaga on the money line and advancing, but I will take Grand Canyon to cover. Grand Canyon's a pretty good offensive team in their own right, so I expect them to cover. I also like the over in this game as well. I like Gonzaga to advance, though, in the bracket. We're building what is supposedly the perfect bracket. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, Butt Fumble Sports. That way you know every time we go live. If you have questions, we have answers. We'll be answering all of your questions in the chat. We're just building our bracket now. But make sure you're hitting that follow button. That way you know when we drop any content around some of the bets we like or some of the picks we're making for the NCAA tournament. We have two more games in the West region to break down. The first one is Northwestern going up against Boise State. Two really good defensive teams. Northwestern with a surprise second finish in the Big Ten this year, going 12-8. They're a 1.5-point favorite against Boise State, who finished second in the Mountain West Conference. Like I mentioned, these are two really good defensive teams. Northwestern, 19th in the country in points allowed per game. Boise State, 35th. When it comes to defensive rating, Northwestern was 31st. Boise State was 32nd. The committee knows what it's doing. They're pairing up two of the best defensive teams up against one another. I expect this to be a battle, but I like Northwestern. They were tested throughout the regular season with their Big Ten conference schedule. They had some really good wins against Purdue and Indiana. They didn't go as far in the Big Ten tournament as I would have liked, but I like Northwestern to win and to advance. I like the under in this game as well. Right now, the total is set at 127.5 points. Given both of these teams are so good defensively, I like Northwestern to cover. Nathan, you agree with me in that you like Northwestern on the cover. You don't think it'll be close. The difference in competition, the difference in talent between the Big Ten and the Mountain West, I tend to agree with you. I like Northwestern on the cover. I do like the under as well, but Northwestern advancing to the round of 32. We're going to close out now the West region. We have one more game to pick. It's UCLA against UNC Asheville. UCLA is a 17.5-point favorite. This is a no-brainer one for me right now. I'll just go for it. UCLA on the money line. We can put it in the books. I like UCLA to advance to the round of 32. We've covered 3 of the 4 regions, one more to go. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. That way you know every time we go live throughout the week. We'll be jumping on TikTok Live and YouTube throughout the week to provide information to help you build your brackets and maybe more importantly, to help you with your betting. A lot of line movement's going to go down over the next 48, 72 hours. You don't want to miss the advice that can help you put together a winning parlay. So make sure you follow us. Hit that follow button if you're on TikTok. Hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. That way you know every time we go live and you can get some good gambling trend information, good game note information to help you cash your tickets. Also, hit the link in our bio, takes you right to our website, buttfumblesports.com. Join our free bracket challenge. We're doing it through ESPN. Our newsletter will go out tomorrow morning. Make sure you're signing up for that free newsletter because it contains all the information you need to be a part of that bracket challenge, the password, everything you need. So sign up for that free newsletter. The link is in our bio. Take us on. Show us that you know what you're talking about when it comes to college basketball. Okay, the final region of the bracket that we're going to break down for the round of 64 before we move on to the round of 32 is the East region. We start really quickly with Purdue. Not going to take a lot of time on this one. I love Purdue in this first game. No matter who they face, it's a play-in game opponent, but I like Purdue advancing to the round of 32. However, waiting for them in the round of 32 is a tough challenge. Memphis against FAU. Memphis, the number 8 seed. FAU, the number 9 seed. Memphis got that win against Houston in their conference tournament that allowed everyone to kind of jump on that bandwagon. I guess everyone but me. I'm really big on FAU. I'll explain why in a moment. But I like Memphis. Memphis is a 1.5 point favorite right now. The total set at 153.5 points. I like FAU for this reason. FAU averages 78.8 points per game. Good for 28th in the country. They also are one of the better defenses in the country, allowing just 65 points per game, 41st in the country. With that said, there are a few teams that are in the top 20 in both offensive and defensive rating. FAU checks both of those boxes. I think FAU is actually better than the seeding that they got. I think they're a really dangerous 9 seed. For that reason, I like FAU to advance. I have FAU on the money line right now. I'm not even taking the plus 1.5. I'm going FAU straight on the money line, and I like FAU to advance to play Purdue in the round of 32. One of the most popular bets right now is number 5 Duke, and they're advancing through the tournament. Duke plays number 12 Oral Roberts in their first round matchup. Not an easy one for Duke for a number of reasons. Oral Roberts has a history of upsets, so Duke needs to be mindful. Duke is a 6.5 point favorite in this game. The total set at 145.5 points. Duke finished 3rd in the ACC regular season. Obviously, they won the ACC tournament. John Shire proving in his first year that he could lead his Duke Blue Devils to an ACC tournament title. But is Duke as good as a lot of people believe? We will find out quick. Oral Roberts went 18-0 in their conference. In the Summit Conference, they were first. Really good team. Oral Roberts averages 84 points per game. That's the 3rd most in the country. So it's offensive strength in Oral Roberts against defensive strength in Duke. I think Duke is gonna win the game. I like Duke advancing on the money line, but I'm curious to know where the spread goes over the next day or two, because I could easily take Oral Roberts to cover. I think this game is going to be much closer than people think. I have my eye on Oral Roberts on a cover play. So right now, I'm not making that bet because I want to see where the spread goes. But if I could right now, I would buy the 1.5. I would get Oral Roberts. I would get Oral Roberts at plus 8 points. I would also take the under. Just given how Duke's defense plays, I do think the under is a good play. Right now, the total set at 145.5 points. I think the under is the good play, but once again, I do have Duke winning and advancing past Oral Roberts. It's actually one of only 2 number 5 seeds that I have advancing to the round of 32. Kid Racer, I agree with you. I don't have Duke going to the Final Four, but you're going to have to keep watching to see how far I have them going. Ashton, we went through that part of the bracket a little bit earlier. I will let you know that I like Arkansas on the money line. I like Arkansas to advance in that game. If you want to catch all of our picks, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, Butt Fumble Sports. You can check out this broadcast and look through all of our picks. Getting back to the East region, Duke will be waiting for the winner of Tennessee against Louisiana. When the bracket first came out, a lot of people were picking Louisiana as an upset play. Tennessee right now is a 10.5 point favorite, so it tells you a lot that Vegas is opening up such a big spread when a lot of people were saying Louisiana might be a good underdog play. With that said, Tennessee is a great defensive team, 2nd in the country in defensive rating. They only allow 58 points per game, 3rd fewest in all of college basketball. I expect this to be a low-scoring game. I like Tennessee on the money line. I know some people are doubting them, but I don't think they're going to lose in the first round. I do think they're very vulnerable in the tournament, but I like Tennessee on the money line. I do like Louisiana to cover. Getting Tennessee at plus 10.5, I feel like is a very good play. I like Tennessee on the money line, Louisiana to cover plus 10.5, and I do like the under as well. But when it comes to our bracket, I have Tennessee advancing, moving on to play number 5 Duke in the round of 32. If you want to check out my bracket live right now, go to YouTube right now. For those that are interested on our broadcast right now, you can see our live bracket that we're building right there up on the screen. So in case you missed any of our picks from earlier, you can check it out if you go to our YouTube channel, But Fumble Sports, and watch the same live broadcast. But make sure you follow us on TikTok. Hit that follow button. That way you know every time we drop content on TikTok. We're going to shift now to the bottom part of the East region bracket. A lot of good teams in this part of the bracket. I actually think that of any section of any part of the bracket, I think these bottom 4 games are the best of all of them. It starts with number 6 Kentucky against number 11 Providence. Kentucky didn't go as far in the SEC tournament as I expected them to. They have a really talented player in Oscar Tshiebwe. He's averaging 16.5 points per game, 13.1 rebounds per game. He is a stud, definitely NBA bound. Antonio Reeves is another player to have your eye on if you're a Kentucky fan. I think he could fill up the basket quite frequently. He's a good shooter from 3. But I think this is going to be a really competitive game. Providence was a good team in the Big East. They finished 4th in a very competitive Big East conference, 13-7 conference record. Providence actually is the better offense. Providence averages 78 points per game, while Kentucky averages 75. Where Kentucky is superior is on the glass. They are going to win the rebounding, so Providence has to shoot a high shooting percentage if they're going to be able to beat Kentucky. But for me, I like Kentucky to win. I like Kentucky on the money line and Kentucky advancing to the round of 32. I think they're being overlooked slightly, and I think that's a benefit when Calipari has teams that are hyped. I feel like they underperform, but when they're under the radar, I think they play a little bit better. I like Kentucky on the money line. I'll also take the over in this game. 2 offenses that can score. I like the over in this game as well. The winner of Kansas State and Montana State will play Kentucky. I'm going to be very quick on this one. I like Kansas State. They're one of my favorite teams in the country this year. I watch them quite frequently because the Big 12 was so competitive. They're an 8.5 point favorite against Montana State. Kansas State has a couple of stars in Keontae Johnson and Marquez Noel. They're each averaging at least 16 points per game. Kansas State, to a metric I mentioned earlier that I really value, they're 11th in the country in assists. They're really good at distributing the basketball. They value the basketball. I love Kansas State in this game. I like Kansas State on the money line, and I like them to advance. I would also bet the under in that game as well, but I like Kansas State advancing, setting up a great matchup with Kansas State against number 6 Kentucky. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. But Fumble Sports, all the content you need to fill out the perfect bracket. We're filling out the East region part of the bracket right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see all of my picks right there on the screen. We're shifting now to number 7 Michigan State against number 10 USC. USC might have been on the bubble a little bit, but I think they deserve to get in. Michigan State, not the kind of quality team they've been in the past. This is the first game that actually tips off on Friday. This is the 12:15 p.m. game on Friday that'll be on CBS. Michigan State is a 2.5 point favorite. The total set at 137.5 points. Michigan State was 4th in the Big Ten, USC 2nd in the Pac-12. Both of these teams kind of middle of the pack when it comes to stats. Very similar statistics in a number of ways. But to me, the difference in this game is Tom Izzo knows how to prepare his players for the tournament as well as any coach in the country. For that reason alone, I'm going to lean towards Michigan State here. I feel very confident in the Spartans just to win given their conditioning throughout the college basketball season for this situation. Whether they can go farther than this game, you're going to have to wait to see. But I like Michigan State to beat USC and to preserve their 7-10 favorability. Again, Michigan State is the favorite in this one, a 2.5 point favorite. I probably would take it on the spread. I'm not putting money down on it just yet, but I do like Michigan State on the money line. I would also lean towards the over. These are two teams that can score the basketball. I like the over just slightly. The final game of the East region that we're going to break down for the round of 64 is Marquette versus Vermont. Shaka Smart's Marquette Golden Eagles. They really impressed towards the end of the year, ultimately winning the Big East regular season, 17-3 conference record. Vermont was first in the AEC, went 14-2 in their conference. Marquette averages just shy of 80 points per game, 19th in the country in scoring. Vermont, I guess you would say defense is their strength, but to me it's kind of a no-brainer here. I like Marquette on the money line. I like the under in this game just slightly. I think the total is set a little too high at 143.5, but an easy pick for me as we fill out the bracket. I have Marquette winning and advancing to the round of 32. That concludes our picks for the round of 64. Make sure you continue watching as we fill out now the round of 32, to see which teams go to the Sweet 16. Before we do that, make sure you hit the link in our bio. Takes you right to our website, buttfumblesports.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. It will go out tonight and be in your inbox tomorrow morning. It will have a link and password in it that allows you to join our bracket challenge. That way you can take us on, fill in a bracket, see if you're right or wrong, better at than our picks. Make sure you join that bracket challenge. Hit that link in our bio and sign up for that free newsletter. It drops tonight and should be in your inbox tomorrow morning. Okay, so we just went through the entire round of 64. Now it's time to pick the round of 32. This is going to be a bit more challenging. We've weeded out some of these teams that don't belong and get into some really great matchups. We're going to start in the South region and then go around the bracket just like we did for the round of 64. We start with Alabama against West Virginia. I don't expect Alabama to be challenged in their first matchup against that play-in opponent, whoever it may be. Meanwhile, I think West Virginia is going to have a tough game on their hands against Maryland. I do think that plays a factor. I think West Virginia is going to be a bit tired from that game. They're going to be banged around. Maryland's a good defensive team. I don't think West Virginia has the offensive power or the defense at this point to stop Brandon Miller. I like Alabama to win and to advance and to be the first team in my bracket to make it to the Sweet 16, Alabama advancing. The next game we have in the South region in the round of 32 is Charleston against UVA. I mentioned this in the round of 64. I love Charleston. They're one of my favorite teams in this tournament in terms of metrics. I think this is a really dangerous matchup for UVA. Charleston could score. I think UVA is questionable in their offense. UVA, obviously a strong defense, but I think Charleston is going to be one of the darlings of this tournament. I have Charleston pulling off the upset and beating UVA in the round of 32 to go to the Sweet 16. Yes, this is going to be one of the biggest upsets, I think, of the NCAA tournament this year, is the College of Charleston team advancing. They will have beaten San Diego State. I think UVA isn't a great team this year. We saw the ACC was weaker. UVA didn't look good in the ACC tournament against Duke. I have an upset with College of Charleston beating UVA and punching their ticket to a Sweet 16 in which they play number 1 Alabama. In the bottom half of the South region, between number 6 Creighton and number 3 Baylor, this is a tough game for me because I'm curious to know what kind of performance Baylor has in their first round against the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos. Baylor was a team I really liked midway through the year, but they fell off a little bit towards the end. Creighton is a team I like in the Big East. Creighton really competitive, offense and defense. They've had a good strength of schedule for a number of reasons. I've been on the Creighton Blue Jays now for a while. They finished third in the Big East. They're good offensively, averaging 76.6 points per game. The question for me is, can they score enough to keep up with Baylor? I'm going to stick with Baylor for this one for now. This is going more towards who I thought the Baylor Bears were midway through the year and who I think they could still be. But in that first round, if Baylor comes out a little bit flat, I will be concerned about this pick. But for now, I do have Baylor, the number 3 seed, beating number 6 Creighton to advance to the Sweet 16. In the next game in the South bracket, the final game before in the round of 32 for the South bracket, I have number 10 Utah State after they upset Missouri, playing number 2 Arizona. I'm going to be quick on this one. I thought Utah State was a barely better team than Missouri. I don't think they're really as close against Arizona as they should be. I think Arizona is one of the best teams in the country. Offensively, they're 5th in the country in points per game. Easy pick for me. I have Arizona advancing to play Baylor in what's a very chalky 2-3 matchup. Again, there's a part of me that wants to slip Creighton in there, but I won't. I love Arizona advancing, though, to the Sweet 16. That answers the question of who's going to make it to the Sweet 16 in the South region. Now let's look to the Midwest region and our round of 32 matchup. In the first game in the round of 32 in the Midwest, Houston, number 1, will play number 8 Iowa, and this is a dangerous game for Houston. I think Iowa is one of the scariest offensive teams. If they're shooting the ball well from three-point range, there aren't many teams that can beat Iowa. When Chris Murray's shooting well, when the McCaffrey boys are shooting well, Iowa's a really dangerous team. This is all about the health of Sasser to me. If the star player Marcus Sasser of Houston is going to be healthy, no problem. I like Houston, but I think it's going to be very close. I think it's a tight game. When the spread comes out for this one, I certainly would take Iowa to cover. But for now, I will take Houston to advance. Again, this is banking on the fact that Sasser is going to be healthy, but I think this is a very competitive game. I do like Iowa a lot in terms of their talent at the top of their starting lineup with Chris Murray, but I'll have Houston advancing. Make sure you're going to our website, buttfumblesports.com, for all of our gambling notes and gambling trends. And as this information comes out, if Sasser isn't able to play, you'll want to hear from us as to how it changes our pick. So make sure you're going to our website, buttfumblesports.com. Houston's punched its ticket to the Sweet 16 in our Midwest region. The next game we have in the Midwest region round of 32 is number 12 Drake, that I have upsetting Miami in the first round, playing number 4 Indiana. I mentioned earlier, I love what Drake can do offensively and defensively. They're a much more balanced team than Miami is. But unfortunately for Drake, I think this round, their Cinderella story ends. Indiana, I think, squeaks by Kent State in a very, very tight game. And I actually think Indiana plays better against Drake than they do against Kent State. I have Indiana advancing, setting up a great storyline game between Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars and Indiana. Obviously, Kelvin Sampson coached Indiana years ago and then had a scandal that forced him to leave the Hoosiers. Mike Woodson has taken over with a couple coaches mixed there in between, but I think it sets up a great matchup between Houston and Indiana in the round of Sweet 16. But I have the Hoosiers under Mike Woodson making it to the Sweet 16 after beating number 12 Drake. In the bottom half of the Midwest region, the next game we're going to look at is number 6 Iowa State against number 3 Xavier. This is a matchup of Big 12 against Big East, two of the conferences that I have the most trust in when it comes to the talent and quality of play throughout the regular season. I like Xavier just barely. Iowa State's a good defense. Xavier a good offense. But I think Xavier has been tested throughout the Big East. They're the better team. I think Xavier is going to advance to the Sweet 16. Who they play will be the winner of Penn State against Texas. Penn State, they got their upset 10-7 win against Texas A&M in my round of 64. I think their luck runs out against Texas. I think Texas is one of the best teams in the country. Penn State can shoot the lights out from 3, but I think their luck runs out against the Longhorns. I have Texas advancing and making it to the round of the Sweet 16. That completes our Sweet 16 round, that completes our round of 32 for the Midwest. If you want to get all of our picks, make sure you go to our website, buttfumblesports.com, and also sign up for our free newsletter. It's going to have all of our picks and gambling notes connected to it. Sign up for that free newsletter, buttfumblesports.com. The link is in our bio. Hit that link in our bio. Sign up for the free newsletter. And you can also, of course, take us on our bracket challenge. The information for our bracket challenge is going to be in that newsletter. Again, the link is in our bio. Hit that link in our bio. Takes you to our website. Sign up for the free newsletter and join our bracket challenge. We've covered the South region. We've covered the Midwest region. It's now time to move down to the West region to determine which teams will move on from the round of 32 to the Sweet 16 as we try to build you the perfect bracket and also give out some gambling notes and trends and picks. In the round of 32, I have number 1 Kansas playing number 8 Arkansas. I like Eric Musselman a lot, but I think Jalen Wilson is going to star in this game. Jalen Wilson's NBA bound after this season. I like Kansas to advance. I like Kansas to win. Kansas has been one of the best teams when it comes to strength of schedule throughout the season. Kansas is a really strong team. I don't think Eric Musselman's Arkansas Razorbacks are as good this year as they've been in years past. I like Kansas to advance and make it to the Sweet 16. Kansas plays the winner of number 5 St. Mary's against number 4 UConn. Put me down for this being one of the best games of the NCAA tournament. These two teams, from a statistical standpoint, are incredibly balanced and incredibly competitive. Two of the best teams in the country from a statistical standpoint. St. Mary's just hasn't been tested quite as much as UConn. UConn having to go through the Big East Conference. I think they're just more prepared for the tournament and for the competition against St. Mary's. I like UConn in a very, very close game. This, to me, is a game in which you probably want to take St. Mary's to cover, but I like UConn to win, UConn to advance to play Kansas in the Sweet 16. We now shift down to the bottom half of the West Region bracket for the round of 32. Number 6 TCU against number 3 Gonzaga. This is a really tough game for me because I really like the Texas Longhorns. They played well throughout the regular season. Jamie Dixon, really good coach, has built a good program there in TCU. Gonzaga has a history of burning people who give them a little bit too much faith in the bracket. But that said, I'm going to ride Gonzaga through the round of 32. I don't think they're going to get eliminated in the first weekend. They're the best offensive team in the country. They're experienced. Drew Timme, I think he's going to get his team past TCU and advance to the round of the Sweet 16. I think that's another great game, really competitive. The West is just a loaded bracket, but I have Gonzaga advancing to the Sweet 16, beating TCU in what should be a very high-scoring game. The last game in the West region for the round of 32 is number 7 Northwestern against UCLA. I think UCLA injuries are ultimately going to make the difference. I have this being a major upset as number 7 Northwestern upsets number 2 UCLA. UCLA was one of the best teams throughout the year in the Pac-12, but they're not healthy. They're not what they were throughout much of the year. Northwestern, really good defense, so a good defense of Northwestern matching up with UCLA's good defense. Boo Buie of Northwestern is one of my favorite guards in the tournament. I think he has a star game in this matchup against UCLA. I like Northwestern to win and advance to the Sweet 16, which would be a Cinderella story for a Northwestern program that continues to try to make its mark. Chris Collins, I think, punches his ticket to the Sweet 16 and continues to build this program into a competitive one in the Big Ten. The last region we have to break down for the round of 32 is the East region. But before we do, make sure you hit that link in our bio, go to our website and sign up for our free newsletter with a link and password in that newsletter to join our bracket challenge. Take us on. Bracket versus bracket. Do you think we're right? Do you think we're wrong? I see Kid Racer, you've been following along with our picks, sharing a lot of the similar picks as us. I'd love to see your bracket challenge against ours. So Kid Racer and all you others out there, hit the link in our bio, go to our website, buttfumblesports.com, sign up for the free newsletter that will come out tomorrow morning, and you can take us on in our bracket challenge one-on-one to see who gets it right and who gets it wrong. We are now going to go through the round of 32 in the East to see who's going to make it to the Sweet 16. The first game that we have to break down is number 1 Purdue against Florida Atlantic. Look out for this game. Florida Atlantic is a really balanced team. I don't think they're getting enough respect. They really should have been a 7 seed or even a 6 seed. I think they're much better than the 9 seed that they received. Purdue's a good team, but sometimes they don't show up against opponents like you would expect. I think Purdue will win this game, but I like FAU to cover in this one. So when this game ultimately does come out, whatever the spread is, I think FAU is a great cover play. I think this is a really close game. Ultimately, I think Zach Edey does make the difference. He's the most dominant player in the country, given his size and what he can do with the basketball inside the paint. So I like Purdue to advance to the Sweet 16, but this is a very, very close game. Purdue will play the winner of number 5 Duke against number 4 Tennessee. I'm not crazy about this game in a number of ways. It's going to be a very low-scoring game. Expect the under to be the play in this one. Duke is a good defensive team. Tennessee is arguably the best defensive team in the country, not named Houston. But that said, Tennessee has injuries. I think they squeaked by Louisiana in the first round, but they don't have enough offensive star power to compete with Duke in this round of 32. So I have Duke winning the 5-4 matchup with Tennessee, Duke advancing to play Purdue in the Sweet 16. Let's shift down to the bottom of the the bottom of the East bracket, where number 6 Kentucky plays number 3 Kansas State. I love this game. This game is going to be so good, but the difference for me is Kansas State has been tested really well throughout the Big 12, and they're good at assists. They distribute the basketball well. Good guard play is usually what stands out in the NCAA tournament. Kentucky is strong on the glass, but they're not as good at guard. I like Kansas State to win. Kansas State is the 3 seed. I think beats Kentucky and advances to the Sweet 16. Jerome Tang, in his first year as Kansas State head coach, has done a brilliant job. Calipari, I don't think his team is deep enough. And as I mentioned, they're not as good at the guard position as Kansas State is. I like Kansas State to advance to the round of the Sweet 16. And finally, the last game we're going to break down in the round of 32 in the East region is number 7 Michigan State against number 2 Marquette. Shaka Smart's Marquette Golden Eagles are the better team. Michigan State isn't good this year compared to what they're usually at. I think they have enough scoring to get past USC in the first round, but ultimately I think Michigan State's run ends in the first weekend. I have Marquette winning and advancing to play Kansas State. That completes the round of 32. We now have all of our teams for the Sweet 16. If you are watching on YouTube, you can check out all of our picks right now. They're all on your screen on our bracket. So if you're watching right now, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can get access to this video as well as our pick videos throughout the week as we answer all of your questions and give out a lot of gambling advice on how to bet the first few rounds of the NCAA tournament. Again, join our bracket challenge newsletter with link and password going out tonight. Be sure to sign up. The link is in the bio. The link is in our bio. Hit that link, go to our website, sign up for the newsletter, and get ready to play the bracket challenge against Butt Fumble Sports. And of course, before we go to our Sweet 16 picks, make sure you're following us. Hit that follow button for all of those watching on TikTok. Don't worry, Kid Racer, we're going to go to every pick in the Sweet 16 round right now. So in case you have questions about how to complete the final few rounds of the NCAA tournament, no need to worry. We're going to break down every game of the Sweet 16 according to the bracket we've just built through the first 2 rounds. In the Sweet 16, let's start in the South region, where we have number 1 Alabama playing one of it actually is our highest seed remaining in the tournament, number 12 Charleston. I have number 12 Charleston pulling off 2 upsets against San Diego State and Virginia, finding their way to the Sweet 16. I have them being the Cinderellas of this tournament, but I don't have this game being that competitive. I think they're the darlings of the first weekend. I think they get blown out to start the second weekend. I have Alabama number 1 winning and advancing to the Elite 8. Easy pick for me. I think Nate Oates, I'm not happy with how he's handled things off the court, but he has the best team in the country right now, and I don't think he's going to have any problem with the College of Charleston in the Sweet 16. Roll Tide. I have Alabama in the Elite 8. The other game in the South bracket, in the South region for the Sweet 16 is number 3 Baylor against number 2 Arizona. Arizona, to me, offensively is superior. Baylor being a good offensive team, the fact that they're not as good as Arizona should be concerning. Arizona's better defensively, better offensively. They're more balanced as a complete roster. I like Arizona to win and to advance. That would set up a very chalky 1-2 matchup in the Elite 8 between number 1 Alabama and number 2 Arizona. Don't hate the chalk. It's just how it's going to go. I think Baylor loses to Arizona, setting up that 1-2 matchup between Bama and Arizona. That answers the Sweet 16 matchups of the South region. Let's shift over to the Midwest region. In the first game in the Midwest region of the Sweet 16, we have number 1 Houston playing number 4 Indiana. The fact this game comes on the second weekend, I think helps Houston even that much more. I think Sasser will definitely be healthy by then if he's playing at all. So for that reason, I like Houston to advance. I don't see Indiana pulling off the upset. Mike Woodson has done a good job with his Hoosiers this year. I think he gets them to the Sweet 16, but the Hoosiers run ends there. I have Houston and Kelvin Sampson winning that game and punching their ticket to the Elite Eight. Houston waits for the winner of number 3 Xavier against number 2 Texas. I think this is going to be one of the best games of the Sweet 16 rather, but I think ultimately the Longhorns prevail. They have the more complete roster. Xavier's a really good offense. These two teams come from two competitive conferences. Again, I think it's a great game. I think whoever the underdog is probably covers. But that said, I like Texas to advance to set up, again, a very chalky 1-2 matchup between number 1 Houston and number 2 Texas, two of the best teams in the country and certainly two teams that should be considered favorites or among the favorites for national championship contention. Houston right now is the favorite overall to win the national championship at plus 500. Texas at plus 1,500 is about the 7th or 8th favorite to win the overall championship. Continuing to build our bracket, we continue to shift down now to the West region as we break down the games in the Sweet 16 for the West region. The first game is number 1 Kansas against number 4 UConn. Everyone I know is going with UConn right now, which surprises me. I thought Kansas was the best team throughout the season. They were challenged the most when it came to strength of schedule. They had the hardest strength of schedule in the country. I think UConn's good. I think Kansas is better. I also like that Kansas has the best player in this game in Jalen Wilson. I'm going to go with Kansas again. A week removed from Bill Self's hospital release. I think it's good for the Jayhawks as well. Give him some more time to settle back into coaching. I like Kansas to advance, beating UConn in what will be a very competitive game. Kansas plays the winner of number 3 Gonzaga against number 7 Northwestern. This pits a great offense against a great defense. I think offense ultimately wins out. I think Drew Timme will win this game and punch the Gonzaga Bulldogs ticket to the Elite Eight. I think Northwestern's a really good team, but I think Gonzaga's experience really plays a factor. I think also Gonzaga, knowing how to score. When they get down, they know how to go inside to Drew Timme and find ways to get points. I think Northwestern at times, if you take away some of their best options, they start to struggle. If Boo Buie doesn't have a great game, where are they going to get their points from? I like Gonzaga to win to set up a great matchup against number 1 Kansas and number 3 Gonzaga. Finally, our last picks for the Sweet 16 come out of the East region. Number 1 Purdue facing number 5 Duke. Filipowski going up against Zach Edey. It's the matchup everyone should want, a battle of big men. A lot of people are high on Duke. A lot of people like Duke for how they finished the year, beating UNC, winning the ACC tournament. I'm going in the other direction. I think Purdue's going to be challenged by FAU in that second round matchup in the round of 32, but I think they're going to be well prepared for Duke. I actually think where you're going to see the biggest difference or advantage for Purdue is Matt Painter against John Shire. Matt Painter is one of the best coaches right now in the country. He's experienced. He has a seasoned team. They know how to win. I think John Shire is going to consider his round to the Sweet 16 a success, but I don't see him getting to the Elite Eight. I have Purdue winning and advancing to the Elite Eight, continuing to keep their national championship hopes alive. Purdue would play the winner of Kansas State and Marquette, which I think could be one of my favorite games of the entire tournament. This one's really tough for me. A lot of you guys out there have mentioned how you have Marquette making it to your Final Four. I had Marquette advancing yesterday when I first looked at the bracket, but in reviewing stats and looking through everything, I'm going to go with Kansas State. I'm going to go with the 3-2 upset. I'm going to say Kansas State beats Marquette. I like the guard play of Kansas State a little bit more. Keontae Johnson, Marquise Noel. I like Kansas State to win and advance to play Purdue in the Elite Eight. That would set up a 1-3 matchup. So again, the teams I have in my Elite Eight going around all 8 teams, number 1 Alabama against number 2 Arizona in the South, number 1 Houston against number 2 Texas in the Midwest, number 1 Kansas against number 3 Gonzaga in the West, and number 1 Purdue against number 3 Kansas State in the East. Those are all of my picks for the Sweet 16. We're down to the Elite Eight. If you want to get all of my picks from all the rounds, make sure you're going to our YouTube channel, But Fumble Sports. Subscribe, check out our content, look at our videos. We'll be putting out picks, gambling advice throughout the week. That way you build a perfect bracket and cash your tickets. Now let's break down these Elite 8 games. Only 4 games remaining featuring these 8 teams. We start in the East region, we start in the South. Number 1 Alabama against number 2 Arizona. I really like Arizona. I like Alabama more. Alabama has the better player. Alabama has the better team. I have Alabama advancing and being the first team in my bracket to make it to the Final Four. Roll Tide, Alabama, the number 1 overall seed entering the tournament. I have them winning. I like Arizona a lot, but I think Brandon Miller and Alabama just do enough and win by just a point or 2. I think it's a very close game, literally 2 3-point difference, but I have Alabama winning and advancing to the Final Four. In the Midwest region, I have number 1 Houston playing number 2 Texas. Finally, I have Houston's run coming to an end. I like Texas. I think Texas is going to win this game. Houston, according to KenPom, is the best team in the country, but I have Texas pulling off the upset here. I don't think Houston's been challenged throughout the year. Their strength of schedule isn't as strong as Texas. I think Texas here proves they're the superior team. I like Texas to pull off the upset and deny Kelvin Sampson at the opportunity to win a national championship. I have Texas advancing into the Final Four. Keep in mind, number 1 seeds are 37-30 against number 2 seeds all time. We have a couple of those matchups. I have the number 1 seed winning in the South. I have the number 2 seed winning in the West. The next game we're going to break down comes out of the West. Number 1 Kansas against number 3 Gonzaga. Kansas is the most tested team in the country. Gonzaga is the best offense in the country. I think Drew Timme's college basketball career ultimately comes to an end in this game. I like Kansas to advance, to beat Gonzaga, setting up another matchup with Texas. I like Kansas to advance against Gonzaga. Bill Self, the reigning national championship Jayhawks, advancing into the Final Four to play number 2 Kansas in the Final Four, but I have Kansas advancing. And the last game of the Elite 8 to determine who goes to the Final Four is between number 1 Purdue and number 3 Kansas State. As much as I like Kansas State, I think their Cinderella run as a number 3, I guess it shouldn't be a Cinderella run, but their Final Four pursuit finally comes to an end. I have Purdue making a Final Four. Matt Painter and the Purdue Boilermakers finally make a Final Four and punch their ticket to face number 1 Alabama. It would set up a 1-versus-1 matchup between Alabama and Purdue, while on the other side I have number 2 Texas facing number 1 Kansas. Those are my picks for the Elite 8. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube, But Fumble Sports. We put out content every day, college basketball picks. Who are we picking for the bracket? We'll also be putting out some player prop bets, so make sure you're following us, But Fumble Sports, on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter @SportsFumble. We've gone through the entire bracket of the NCAA tournament. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the bracket right on your screen with all of our picks. We're down to just 2 games remaining in the Final Four and then a national championship game. So let's get to it. Who do I have winning in the Final Four? In our first game, we have number 1 Alabama against number 1 Purdue. We have Brandon Miller, arguably the best player in the country according to NBA scouts, against Zach Edey, who will probably be National Player of the Year. I like Alabama to win this game. I think Alabama pulls off the win against Purdue. I think Purdue's shooting goes a little bit cold. I think Alabama has the offense to score from the perimeter. I think Zach Edey doesn't play as big a factor in this game. I like Alabama to win and advance to the national championship game. Who will Alabama play? Well, in the other side of the Final Four, I have number 2 Texas playing number 1 Kansas. And in their last 2 meetings, Texas won, both in the regular season finale as well as in the Big 12 tournament championship game, and I think Texas is going to make it 3 in a row. I think Texas has Kansas's number. I know the Kansas Jayhawks have some good players in Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick, but I think Texas is going to win this game, setting up a matchup between number 1 Alabama and number 2 Texas in the national championship. As much as I hate to say it, I think Brandon Miller, Nate Oates, I think the Alabama Crimson Tide are the best team in the country. They were the number 1 overall seed entering the tournament. No matter what's going on with that program away from the basketball court, when it comes to on the basketball court, I think the Alabama Crimson Tide are the best team in the country right now. And that is why I'm going to have Alabama as my national championship pick. I have Alabama winning the national championship. And let's go with a score of 73-68 will be my final score. So again, my final score for the national championship is Alabama beats Texas 73-68 to give Alabama the national championship in college basketball. We're not talking football, we're not talking Nick Saban, but I have Alabama winning the national championship in the bracket that I just built. If you want to review any of the picks that we've just gone through, make sure you go to our website, buttfumblesports.com, and go to our social media channels, Buttfumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. Make sure you're following and make sure you're subscribing. That way you never miss an opportunity to watch our content, engage with us, get advice. We're here to answer all of your questions to help you build the perfect bracket now that we've gone through every pick of the NCAA tournament. I hope that information was helpful, not just in building your bracket, but hopefully cashing some tickets along the way. Don't forget, join our bracket challenge newsletter with a link and a password going out tonight. It will be in your inbox tomorrow. Be sure to sign up. Link is in our bio. Hit that link in our bio. Sign up for that newsletter, and that way you can play against us in our bracket challenge. We just went through every game of the NCAA tournament, answering all of your questions now. If you have questions about any game, we're here to answer it. It can be the round of 64 all the way to the national championship. So if you have questions out there, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, and throw your questions in the chat. We're here to answer all of your questions. Let's put out a poll. I just said that the Alabama Crimson Tide is going to win the national championship. Let's do a quick poll for those who are watching. Smiley face if you agree with me, crying face if you disagree with my pick. Will the Alabama Crimson Tide win the national championship? Smiley face if you say yes, crying face if you say no. Do you agree or disagree with my pick for who's going to win the national championship? I'm saying Alabama. Smiley face if you say yes, you agree with my national championship pick, or crying face if you disagree. Do you have another team? So this would be yes if you have Alabama, crying face if you have the field. Doing a quick poll, do you agree or disagree with my national championship pick? I have Alabama winning the national championship. Smiley face for yes, crying face for no. Do you think that Alabama will win the national championship? If you have another team, throw your national championship team in the chat. Would love to engage with you guys and hear who you have winning the national championship. Who do you have finishing in your bracket as the number 1 team overall? Appreciate all of you guys watching and following. Did you have Duke playing against Marquette? I don't. I have Duke playing against Purdue in the Sweet 16 and then losing to Purdue in that game. I have Marquette losing to Kansas State, so neither team makes it to the Elite Eight. Kid Racer has Texas over Purdue for the national champion. Mike is with me. You have Alabama. I have Alabama on the national championship pick. My final 4 teams are Alabama, Purdue, Texas, and Kansas. And the Cinderella I have going the farthest is I have number 12 Charleston making it to the Sweet 16 before they lose to eventual champion Alabama. If you have questions about how to fill out your bracket, throw them in the chat. We're here to answer all of your questions. Make sure you're following Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. That way you know every time we go live. We're going to be live on TikTok Live and YouTube throughout the week, helping you build the perfect bracket and bet not just before games, but also in games. We will be going live during the NCAA tournament. So if you want to get some in-game betting advice, something we do really well is in-game betting. So if you want to get some in-game betting advice, make sure you're hitting that follow button. That way you know every time we go live. Butt Fumble Sports will be giving out in-game betting advice on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So make sure you're following us. That way you never miss an opportunity to ask us questions and get some information. Appreciate all of you guys joining us. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. It's going out tomorrow morning. Join us for our free newsletter. Or sign up rather for our free newsletter. It goes out tomorrow morning. It will have information that allows you to compete against us in our bracket challenge. The password and link to that bracket challenge is in the newsletter. So if you want to compete against us, make sure you hit that link in our bio, hit the link in our bio, sign up for that free newsletter, and compete against us in our bracket challenge. We appreciate all of you guys watching us. We just went live for an hour and a half. All of our picks in the entire round, in the entire NCAA tournament, all 68 teams whittled down to just one and an eventual national champion. If you want to check out all of our picks, go to our YouTube channel, Butt Fumble Sports. Check out all of our picks as well as our videos. We'll be putting out gambling videos throughout the week to help you make some money. We appreciate all of you guys watching and making some time to get entertainment from Butt Fumble Sports. Make sure you reach out to us and engage. We'll be here throughout the week to answer all of your NCAA March Madness questions. Until then, thanks.